Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and we have a fair bit of Nintendo Switch 2 news to discuss today. Some pretty darn exciting things, some of the things you may have already heard, but others you might not have. And why? Because maybe you don't follow people who only speak in Spanish, and fortunately, I speak Spanish, so there are some other venues out there that have reported or put out some other information that's quite interesting, all pertaining to Nintendo Switch 2. We got retailers preparing for Switch 2, we got pre-orders opening up for Switch 2, and we have hundreds of developers confirming development for Nintendo Switch 2, and the way it's looking, it's strongly suggesting that it is happening this year. And so we're talking about all of that today. But before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers, so if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Leaving a like is also super helpful, and enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So before getting into several bits of new information about Switch 2 that have come out within the last 24 hours or so, I would like to remind some of you of something we talked about earlier this month, about different developers already being on the record about being excited for Nintendo Switch 2 in 2024. One example being Masao Kawada from Capcom, where he literally said 2024 will also bring new consoles and more indie titles to look forward to. So consoles, that means more than one. So you can make the argument, oh, maybe he's just talking about PS5 Pro. And that is being rumored right now, and maybe that does come. But when you say consoles, well, it would be more than just a PS5 Pro. And with everything we've heard about Switch 2, it strongly supports that idea. But there were also others, so if you're interested in that information, I already made that video a few weeks ago, you can check that one out. But I point this out just to sort of show that there's already been some record of developers from Japan expressing excitement for Nintendo Switch 2 really soon. And what's extra interesting about this, in relation to some of the news we're discussing today, is that we got a survey from GDC, the Game Developer Conference, and it's suggesting some pretty exciting things here. So as reported by Video Games Chronicle, there were over 3,000 game developers that took part in this survey. And there was this one question that asked, which platforms are you developing your current project for? Choose all that apply. And 8% said Nintendo Switch successor. And if you do the math, that's well over 200 developers confirming that their current projects are for the Nintendo Switch successor. So some people have argued that maybe this doesn't mean they have dev kits or not, but the fact of the matter is the question was asking current project. So what that means is that they are currently working on games that they are planning to release on the Nintendo Switch successor, and we have over a couple hundred developers confirming this already. But some of you may say, whoa, 8% is such a small number. And the fact of the matter is, context is needed for a full understanding here, because it's actually a pretty significant amount of people. So full credit going to Nintendo Prime, he pointed out some of these older surveys in his video. I will link his video and also the sources to these surveys in the description below. But back in 2017, when we had the GDC, Game Developer Conference survey back then, only 3% said that they were currently working on Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo Switch came out March 2017. So let's put that into perspective here. Nintendo Switch 2 has yet to have even been officially confirmed by Nintendo yet. And at this point, it's very likely coming out later into the year, sometime in the second half, most likely, at least based off the reports. And yet we already have confirmation that 8% of developers at GDC are currently working on a game for the Nintendo Switch successor, Nintendo Switch 2, yet back in 2017, when the Switch came out at the very beginning of the year, where you would expect more developers would be working on the console, only 3% of developers confirmed that they were working on Nintendo Switch. If someone who takes this 8% and tries to manipulate that to suggest that not many people are working on it, so we're kind of far away from Switch 2. Well, by that logic, Nintendo Switch should not have come out March of 2017, but it did. But here's another little interesting tidbit of history when it comes to GDC surveys. Back in 2020, when this survey was conducted, 11% of the developers at the conference said they were working on PlayStation 5, and 9% said they were working on Xbox Project Scarlet. This project came to be known as the Xbox Series. The current gen platforms that are now out, they both released in 2020. So, Switch 2, we're seeing 8%, not too far off from 11 and 9. In other words, in terms of hearing about all these different developers working on this Nintendo Switch successor, it's all suggesting that a launch is happening this year. That's what the information is showing us. This isn't speculation, this isn't a rumor, this isn't a report from an article that you may want to challenge their credibility. These are literally hundreds of developers that are confirming their current projects are for the Nintendo Switch successor. So not only does this bode well for Switch 2 indeed coming out this year, but this also bodes well for third-party support on the system. If Switch 2 is indeed coming out this year, and we already have 8% at GDC suggesting they're working on current projects for Switch 2 versus the 3% back in 2017 for Switch, that's pretty good. But something else that's interesting is that the current surveys coming from GDC of this year say that 32% are suggesting they have an interest in developing for Switch 2, which is a very sizable number, and it's only behind PC and PlayStation 5. It's ahead of the interest for Xbox Series. Now, something else to note here, Switch 2 has not been confirmed yet, and a lot of developers may be under NDA. So even though this survey is anonymous, some developers may not have even said what they were actually working on. So these percentages could perhaps be skewed negatively and may actually be even more significant. So overall point here, we have strong evidence supporting the idea of Switch 2 indeed coming out this year, and also strong evidence showing that there's even more interest in developing for Switch 2 than there was for Switch 1, which means more games, and that's definitely a good thing. But many of you may have already seen these headlines from other channels or websites. But we still got more to talk about today, and perhaps what we're going to talk about now is even more exciting. Depends on your perspective. So, technically, pre-orders are already opening up for Nintendo Switch 2. So, Mega Japan, a Japanese site where you can buy things, has pre-orders up for Nintendo Switch 2. Currently out of stock, they have a placeholder date of December 31st, 2024. But there we go, we have a venue that has pre-orders available for Switch 2. Well, they're already out of stock, but it's happening. But there's more. It ain't just that. So this information was discovered thanks to this Spanish YouTube channel, Nintendo Leaks. And what's interesting about Nintendo Leaks, I watched their video. Their video will be linked in the description below. They are a very good Nintendo news channel. So if you speak Spanish, I strongly recommend you check them out. And listening to their video, they actually had some of their own personal sources that they were referencing. And they were told two different Spanish retailers, two different retailers in Spain, are preparing for Nintendo Switch 2 as well. They are gearing up. And what's extra exciting about this is that Nintendo Leaks is reporting that he got this information at the same time that Mecha Japan has opened up pre-orders. And so, with it happening around the same time, there's this implication that there could be this widespread preparation for the Nintendo Switch 2 that's happening across retailers worldwide, meaning that word is getting out there behind the scenes that Switch 2 is indeed around the corner. Retailers are in preparation, and we factor this alongside everything else we've discussed today, how a number of developers in Japan are excited for Switch 2 this year, and that devs are literally confirming that they are working on Nintendo Switch 2, hundreds of them from GDC. And when you compare those numbers to prior years, this strongly suggests something is about to happen. This is exciting stuff. So, if you want to pre-order Switch 2, You may have an opportunity because more venues may be opening that up in the not so distant future. I imagine that it won't be a significant amount until Nintendo actually announces the console themselves, but retailers are getting ready, developers are getting ready, and I'm personally getting ready, and I'm going to assume some of you are as well. Switch 2 is around the corner. I know some people think it's a fabrication, some people think it's coming out in 2027 or 2026 or 2025, but as time progresses, more and more evidence are presenting themselves, strongly supporting the idea that this is happening very soon. But when I say very soon, what do I mean exactly? In truth, I don't know. And I've actually been going back and forth on my prediction for an announcement by the end of March 31st. Because while I think there's a good chance we could maybe see an announcement on either sometime in this last week or so of January, February, or March, if Switch 2 is coming out in, say, September as speculated by many, or even perhaps a bit beyond October or November, then maybe Nintendo can save the announcement for a bit later into the year. When we take a look at Nintendo Switch, they gave us that first initial teaser October 20th, 2016, and the system released March 3rd, 2017. That's a 4.5 month window. So say a system's coming out in September, conceivably, we might not see an announcement until April. And of course, if the system's coming out even later, we may have to wait until summer for an announcement. And so I've been a bit concerned about my prediction of an announcement by the end of March 31st. It is conceivable that I could be wrong here, absolutely. It is just a prediction. But with the recent information we've discussed today, with retailers prepping for Nintendo Switch 2, multiple, that does increase my optimism a bit that if they're gearing up for something to be announced soon, and they may want to have pre-orders out already or are about to have pre-orders be put out, then maybe an announcement is coming sooner than what some of us may be thinking. Of course, we should take this with a grain of salt. Nintendo Leaks is talking about his own sources of these retailers. We don't know for a fact if it's true or not. It's something he heard, which is literally the definition of a rumor. So take it with a grain of salt. And even with all this information that seems very compelling for Switch 2 to come out this year, delays can happen. And so it's not confirmed until it's confirmed. But I'm very, very optimistic. But what do you all make of this new information? Does this have you more excited? Are you changing your plans? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.